How you doing?
Hey. All right, folks.
Here we go.
Want to do something good? We're conquering fear in this country. PragerU. Go to prageru.com.
Okay, Prager, I'm taking you on.
And give us a donation. This is a fundraising month.
Oh, really? Do tell.
We are fighting the good fight.
Oh, yes.
Liberty,
Of course.
Judeo-Christian values.
Judeo-Christian? The one with Jesus willing.
It's only possible with donations. prageru.com. 333 PragerU. I thank you, and do not fear, as God says.
Okay, so that was the happiness hour. Never heard that song. The joy of the Lord is my strength. Do you believe that's a psalm somewhere there, Mr. Prager? And oh, he was defending his Bible commentary today, suddenly after, was today the first day of my new King's U versus Prager U video? Timing is everything, I guess. Didn't know, I wasn't planning on catching the happiness hour now, and then all of a sudden he's talking about how, well, everyone has fear, see, so, you know, you can't just say that sorry, there was a call there. You can't just say that you don't fear. No, you have to, like, balance some fear with less, because everybody fears. So, in the happiness hour today, the idea of happiness, from happiness is a serious problem, faux happiness with no joy? Yeah, maybe. Oh, that fits. If the joy of the Lord is my strength, well then, gee, Dennis, you sound pretty joyless to me. In fact, I heard you being a little rough with some, ideas and saying you might lose callers or fans and you didn't care because they made spoiled brats or some stuff, but you're not one of those spoiled brat people, are you? Oh no, New York protected you from that and all those wisdom. What did you say, that you talked to so many people that gave you so much wisdom when you wrote that commentary? That's what you said today? Just after I came out challenging Prager theology? Oh, and you did say theology too, and how all the wisdom of all these people around the world has, well, it's made you understand. Then you talked about fear and how, well, just for an example, you said, well, if I went to Israel, I wouldn't fear dying, getting bombed by evil terrorists. Is that what you said? Oh, really? Did you tell? Are those the ones that are worshiping a Son of God King they expect to come? Those evil ones? Well, the king that I know, Mr. Prager, sir, in Pragertopia land. That was a pretty good word. Maybe we should come up with Kingtopia, because that might be the true one, where the king who came said that if you just follow the 2 greatest commandments, Mr. Prager, that we wouldn't need any of the law and the prophets. And in all that wisdom that you gained talking to all these people around the world, did you ever discuss those 2 greatest commandments, which would mean that that wild Indian tribe hunter that's been praying to the sun to help him find a good hunt? Well, if the King of Kings came and he bowed down to him, then who are you and what is what? And how is your theology again? Because from what I understand, he will bow and it will be all good, but you got all these finger-pointing games that you love to play, like shuffleboard or 3D chess. Well, my king, he plays like 7D chess, and he's already figured out checkmate, and I don't know what part of you are in it, but I do know that your buddy boy, Benny, yes, Shapiro, oh, that one. Yes, he does take you to a Pragertopia land when he goes on Joe Rogan and says, the Messiah? I might be it. I thought late night comedy wasn't on Joe Rogan, but I did know he was a comedian, but I didn't know about know-it-all boy Benny, your Pragertopia wisdom expert that's on the younger side. Not a little cocky know-it-all like he appears sometimes. But then again, some people from New York, they can be a little on the cocky, arrogant side and have that chutzpah, yeah. Which, gee, I seem to have, but I guess I'm just crazy, huh? If I challenge Pragertopia with truth that it's not varnished up and surrounded by shill ads every 3 minutes. You know, if you take this pain away, you might be in pain-free comfort zone. It's funny how they say that on the radio. You are in, what do they call it? Comfort land or whatever with pain away. Wow. And you work out and the pain makes you need to take a pill? What workout were you doing, Mr. Prager, with your expert trainer that makes you sore that you need to take a pill? And that's healthiness? You look a little on the chubby side to me, because I don't know, but I don't want to be judgmental, but do you go to all-you-can-eat buffets? Because I thought gluttony was one of the commandments we were supposed to avoid, but wow. I guess if you want to just hold on to your cigar smoking is okay, then that's cool with you or whatever, since you are special to someone, but I'm just trying to figure out who and why, because you don't really come out and say really much about happiness today. You sounded more like a stressed out, upset one that got exposed or something. So, Dennis, you said you can take a trip and you fear, but you're not going to be bombed unless whatever happens. I mean, that's just life. So tell me, in all your wisdom that you check with all these experts, Mr. Prager, and your Judeo-Christian wife, or so you act like anyway, like all those Christians that you call with you, and all your plans, and what exactly are your plans that you got all that wisdom from, like those rabbis. And, oh, yes, Pragertopia, your history with all these languages that you talked about today, and your history studies, and your knowing Russian, and understanding what happened with Stalin. But I've never heard you, Mr. Prager, talk about how those times that you studied so well, and your Russian studies, you must have went over how Stalin started anti-Semite laws and killed 10 million Russians because of their attitude. And, oh, now you've got all this wisdom from all over the world, but you spent a lot of time in Russia looking up to Stalin's world. And now some rabbis have been planning to do Stalin's anti-Semite style Holocaust Part 2 or 3, depending on how you count Hitler and that. Anyway, just do tell more, Mr. Prager, about your happiness today, because, wow, I didn't get much from having a little less fear. But, you know, when my king came, he exposed all the rabbis as Pharisees and hypocrites who had blasphemed and had no hope in this life nor the life to come. So, did you delete that too when you just focused on the Torah and your great commentary with all the wisdom of the world, but you didn't like that New Testament because it wasn't for you, right? Because you know which part of the sands of the sea Abraham was talking about. What did you say on that verse in your great commentary of Pragertopia? I'd really like to know which sand was which, and how did you know which was you and which was... Oh, New York, was that it? Oh, yes, that's right. I keep forgetting that intelligence that Ashkenazis always have. It's 30 points higher than anyone else on Earth. That's why they run everything. Sometimes I forget about all these truths of the world, but the wisdom of men is foolishness to God, and I'm just trying to figure out, Pragertopia man, is this a topia like a utopia, like princely reign, like the Synod de Satan? Are you with Trump on those gold coins, and did you invest in some? And are some of your friends involved in that? And that's why there's all this gold shuffleboard going on? And were you a fan of making the dollar the peso? Because you always have been a red pillar, right? And but you kind of said you don't really like Trump that much, so since he was a journeyman in bankruptcy, that won't be your fault. It's a neat game you play, like three chess and shuffleboard, or maybe it's a shell game, because with all your great theology and different happiness, it gets a little hard to follow, but you do have a lot of payments coming in from all your shilling about. Just makes me wonder if you might be involved with that whore of Babylon. Well, the Prince of Persia was over in that area too, where the Dead Sea is now, and 7 Dead Seas will come in Revelation 22. Oh, did Pragertopia cover that, Mr. Prager? And did you counsel people that when you learned of all these things and your great wisdom and happiness? And no, King, and no, we don't want to talk about those 2 greatest commandments of love God, right, and your neighbor as yourself. That would be really complicated, and we don't want to talk about that, because your rabbi didn't talk about that, did he? And is he the same one that believes that Jesus boils in crap? Well, that's not the Jesus I ever knew. But maybe it's your buddy Dennis, and that's the one that you're hoping all your Judeo-Christian friends believe in. So then there wouldn't be a king coming, right, in Philippians 2 that all will bow to? Oh, so that was all just an imagination? And that king, well, he wasn't really a king. Do you believe that it just should have been written that he called himself king, not that he actually was? And so you're still proving that wrong? Is that what it is, Mr. Prager, and all your Judeo-Christian buddies who say that they're saved by grace, but that grace might not be from my king? And, well, it might take some of them, I don't know, out to the drying sea that dries out with fake salt and maybe pillars of liars? I don't know, but maybe you could clear up some of your great theology to some of us who have a simple understanding of God and who he will be, because if the whole Old Testament is about loving God and your neighbor as yourself, I don't think I've ever heard you on that show, even when I was a big fan, and I was scratching my head for years at this whole Judeo-Christian idea, because I was always taught that, well, those he came for who rejected him won't have a beautiful second chance. So, please do tell Mr. Prager what exactly you believe and what you think blasphemy in this day and age is, because, well, I thought that it meant a certain thing, that if you've got the chutzpah to admit it, means that when you were like 13, that you memorized like much of the Torah, and one of the first things you learned is that the only ones who can blaspheme are those who've already known him first. So, I don't know when or how you might have known the God you call my king, but yet he's not a king to you, or you don't recognize him as king, and you call me in the same club as you, as holding hands with the bride of Christ when you killed him and now deleted him, and seem to be with the Sino de Satan who runs most churches today, who only talk like princes and never mention a king, and sounds a lot like you and your happiness show, which all those Judeo-Christian stations tune in. Are you for real, Mr. Prager? And are you really happy? Because